is the best period Corey round in the match.
Ali Dodi, danger for Australia here. The flag's down. It's an equaliser.
You just feel for them. Not just the boys. They are representative of so many people who make this game their life. It's just... I can't say anything, mate.
All right.
Especially as they have the impetus. Aloisi. Cahill. Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment in Kaiserslautern! And Tim Cahill has come off the bench and maybe won the match for the Socceroos.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio. Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Pickett, she lays it off. Teresa Polias! It's an absolute peach. Ayres driving. What a hit from Melina Ayres! Wow! And Sam Kerr has a hat-trick.
And we're back for another edition of Radio Dub. We were there last week. We're trying to be more consistent and, be more present in everybody's lives that cares about the NPL Women's Victoria as we do. And, I'm your host. I feel weird saying a host on this show.
No, you are.
It's a collaborative experience.
Host/overlord. No. And when you're in the studio doing this program, I bow down to you, Pokuah.
I feel like that's not a pro term. We'll figure something out in the thesaurus. But I am Pokuah from Hong, and as always, I'm joined by was a sub, now permanent fixture, Lachie Flanagan. Lachie, thank you for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a week that's got that air of something exciting, something special here in Victorian football, because it is Cup final week.
It is Cup final week, and you know what? With Cup final week, we thought we need to bring in the big guns, and you know what? They had an audition last week, and they were good. But we said, you know what, they're going to even be better for the final show. We've obviously...
Oh, you meant Oscar.
I was meant Oscar, of course.
Oh, okay. You said big guns, and I was thinking wow, we've got someone from Fox FM or Nova. It's Oscar. No, glad to have Oscar here.
We do have Oscar here.
Hello, Oscar.
Hello, Oscar. How are you?
Well, I was feeling okay, but now I feel undermined. No, I'm kidding. I'm good. I'm excited. Yeah, as we say, it was a good weekend last weekend. It will be another good weekend next weekend.
No, stop. Let's stop right there. Okay, it's not going to be good. It's going to be great. Okay, you know what? Nike FC Cup final on Sunday at 4 p.m. What's the ground's name again, Lachie?
The Valley Park Event Centre.
Yeah, you say
formerly known as ABD in Broadmeadows, Barry Road, for those who are hoping to attend.
You say it so clearly, so I thought I'd just get
the VPAC
to everyone out there. And obviously on the Saturday, we do have we do have the Doherty Cup final on Saturday as well, which I personally, I'm hoping Oakley wins, as a former Oakley Cannons fan. But you know what? That's enough at men's football. Even that 30 seconds.
That's our perfunctory men's football update for the show.
30 seconds.
Cast it aside now.
It was an exciting weekend of football last weekend. We had 4 games on last weekend, and then we had a catch-up game last night.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's only right, as always, to go through Should we start from most recent, or should we start from the furthest away?
I think we should go from furthest away, and because if we sort of build this chronology now and we start from furthest away, that means we can work our way towards a preview of the Nike FC Cup at the end.
No, you're not. This is why you're...
Sorry, I forgot I shouldn't be making these decisions. You are the overlord. You are the host.
This is why it's important to have other people's opinions.
Sorry,
then you can build
I
on
submit
such-
my ideas to you.
And
you
I accept those
take
ideas.
those ideas and do with them what you want, my liege.
But even going chronologically, does that mean you start with the Alamein game or the Calder game is my question.
He's asking the right questions. Get rid of this man. He knows too much.
We're going to start with Alamein versus Box Hill United.
Slave to the alphabet.
Well,
whatever.
you weren't doing that game.
I used the word overlord before. Now you're
Guys, what is
We're all ruled by
I feel
the
like I
alphabet at the
need
end
to
of
start
the
changing
day.
like Pokuah.
No, but
I'll save that for
you
off
see
air.
how I try to get this show in order, guys. What's going on? Alamein Box Hill. Did you do that game on the weekend, Oscar?
No, I did not.
No, who did the commentary for that game? I can't remember.
For Alamein Box Hill, that was Han Solo, and she got
yes.
the chance to preside over what was a pretty
it was
entertaining
a
game,
very
actually.
entertaining game.
I just want to say, actually, by the way, because I don't know about you guys, but I'd listened back to our predictions for the weekend.
I haven't done that.
And I got correct result, correct scoreline in this game. So
Wow.
I do, obviously.
just a brief singular Lachie-induced
Did you
round
check
of
any of
applause
our
for
predictions?
Lachie.
Did you check any of our predictions?
I can't remember. I just spoke to myself. Me.
I fully believe you.
So it started off with, I believe, if my laptop would work, that'd be nice. But we had the Sophia Sakalis goal for Box Hill first, and then Alamein scored literally 30 seconds later with City
Yeah,
Allen.
from their own kickoff.
From their own kickoff. And then just Yasevsky?
Yeah, Box Hill pulled back ahead.
Yeah, pulled back ahead, and then Stamatopoulos, if I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I do apologise. Scored in the 82nd minute to get Alamein that 2-2 draw. But it was an interesting game, ultimately. What were your thoughts on that game, guys?
Well, I would say I think we saw the star players kind of at their best for each side. I think those first two, Sophia Sakalis was heavily involved in both goals.
Yeah.
She's in excellent form at the moment. She's been contributing to just about every goal the Box Hill has scored over the last few
Sophia
weeks.
Sakalis fan, so you don't really have to convince me about her.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because I think this time last week we were like, do they sort of have that kind of focal point, I guess, and while they didn't get a win in this game, it is but a 2-2 draw, and it was probably a game that they needed to win if they wanted to kind of pip Alamein into the finals. But I guess they're kind of showing that they can operate without a focal point, because Sophia Sakalis, she obviously scored that first goal, good interplay between her and Mindy J. Barbieri, for those who don't understand what I'm talking about there. And then she set up the second as well, did she not?
Yes, I do believe so, yes.
Right.
Yeah. So
really nice assist too, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, harking back to what we were saying last week, by having a player who isn't a target up top, you allow yourselves to have forwards who drop back deep, and that's what happens. That leaves space in behind, which we consistently see someone who is renowned for their pace, like Anais Yasevsky, is able to exploit and score. And we saw that again over the weekend.
Like, obviously we know, like, Box Hill don't have that traditional focal point, but they do kind of have the centre of where all their play runs to, and that is Sophia Sakalis. She kind of finds herself in any spot really, and she can create for them. And I think that unfortunately, obviously this season, that she's had to create more than probably she would have wanted to, for this team to be like as successful as they should be. But she's when she has had opportunities to, and the workload hasn't been overly crazy, she can be that focal point up front, but obviously picking the ball up deeper and just kind of dribbling it out and creating something for herself, which is something that I think, with all the amount of work that she's had to do this season, something that's improved in her game of creating, things that basically out of nothing, because it's a lot of the chances that Box Hill have had to score this year, they've kind of been like just fleeting, and she's just created magic.
And I think the return of Mindy Barbieri, which Lachie alluded to, I think was also really important. Mindy's obviously a wonderful player who brings...
They're a great tandem, those two.
Absolutely, and brings a degree of composure and class into the Box Hill midfield, which at times it does feel like they're lacking. So I think that having Mindy back in that team adds a lot, and I think we saw the benefits of it on the weekend, even though they only came away with the draw.
You kind of get that, even if it doesn't always result in the desired result for the whole team, you can always sense in the NPLW like that higher level of understanding that the A-League women's offcuts, or not offcuts, but sorry, A-League women's players who are, playing in their off-season in the NPLW just have got between one another. They sort of understand that sharpness, the sort of, it's not just about the one the pass to the teammate. It's about, potentially being able to connect with the pass after that. I mean, when you add Mindy Barbieri back into the fold, we're kind of blessed with two really intriguing, like quite high quality midfields at NPLW Victoria level as well, because obviously we saw Nia Stamatopoulos was the player who scored to make it 2-2, yes, by aid of a moment from Erin Hudson that despite all her good work, I think she's been impressive. One that she wouldn't. That seemed to be a bit of a running theme this weekend, but more on that later. And we also saw Sydney Allen get the that equalising goal from kickoff. I think she was set up by Elena Vatke. So the midfields did a really, really good job of contributing to the fabric of this game.
I think this game kind of interesting. Like if you were to bottle up everything the Box Hill have been this year, that their goal to them conceding, they're to get it to 1-1 is like a vacuum of everything that you see from them, where they can be so, they can be critical up front, they can be really nice, and they can have some really nice passes together, and you're like, oh wow, they just scored a really nice goal, and then they just fall asleep in moments and just kind of, they lose concentration. I think that's probably been their biggest weakness this year, is when they probably should stay sharp and just relax for 2 seconds, just for 5 minutes, they kind of just fade away. And then teams like Alamein, can just come in and just score it. And a goal that probably, if they were a little smarter, they maybe would have kicked it out for a throw-in, or would have conceded a corner, would have stopped the play and just maybe a foul, but they just allowed Alamein to just go from the halfway line to the back of the net. And obviously for Box Hill, though, looking at this game, it's probably a game that maybe they would have been like, we aren't the favourites. So it's not like a horrible result. Obviously, they're not going to make finals at this point. Well, they could, but it's very slim to none.
I mean, look, I'm just trying to have a little bit of a look at the run here, and I look, just glancing at the ladder. Obviously, that draw keeps Alamein 4 points ahead of Box Hill, who do have that game in hand. Although, important caveat, that game in hand is against Calder. But their final 3 games to end the season. FV emerging next week. That is an all-important game, because the team that's splitting Alamein and Box Hill on the table is, of course, FV emerging. So that is almost a play-in tournament kind of, right to tilt for the finals. Heidelberg and South Melbourne, their final 3 games to end the season. Meanwhile, for Alamein, yes, they are 4 points ahead. FC Bulleen Lions, Bayside United, you can probably not lock in a win there. But Calder, on the final day, that's not an easy run. No, it's 4 points is not as much as I think we might be theorising.
You're not wrong there. And with Mindy Barbieri back, it's going to be interesting to see how they go. And Mindy Barbieri, has she committed to Melbourne Victory? She will Melbourne Victory next year again?
I don't know, actually. I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise.
I think it'd be really interesting to see her play next year, with maybe Alex Shidek not playing in that midfield as well. So might be more opportunities for her in that midfield. So I'm excited.
And I do just want to make one point on the 2 things that you have both just said in your last discussions. Firstly, Lachie, when you were talking about the quality of having players who have played in the A-League Women's in the NPLW, and I think that on the other side of the coin, when you look at Alamein and having Amy Jackson there, kind of has that a very similar effect.
Absolutely.
And then Pokuah, you were talking, I very much agree with your assessment or your summation of Box Hill as a team that probably we would expect could be performing better than they have this season. I feel like a spot in the finals is not unrealistic, is not an unreasonable aim, and in many ways what Box Hill are lacking is what Alamein are so good at. Is I feel like Alamein do get the best out of themselves. They're a disciplined team. They're sensible. They know their strengths, and they're very well organised. Whereas Box Hill, they have those moments of brilliance, and you see how good they could be, but they haven't been able to string that together consistently.
It's a bit too rangy, isn't it?
That's what's held them back. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? We'll move on to the next game of the weekend, and that was Calder versus Heidelberg. Did you get the fixed scores right for this game too, or no? Did you pick?
Yes, I did actually.
I
think I got...
I picked the winner, I think.
I got three results out of 4, but I only got 2 scorelines. So this is the weekend, the 3 p.m. kickoffs, I was on fire. We won't talk about what happened the rest of the weekend, but the 3 p.m. kickoffs, I was I was like Scrooge McDuck, just like swimming around in my pit of gold coins.
I think I did say that Heidelberg would get in front and Calder would crawl their way back.
See, but you haven't listened back to it, so you don't know that for sure.
No, I do. I said it was going to be 2-2, so I was.
So you were wrong.
I was wrong.
You were right about the flow of events, but wrong about the final.
Did I say
Not as impressive
3-1?
as it, Oscar.
Did I say 3-1? I can't remember. Something like that. Maybe.
This is probably why we should listen to the predictions beforehand. But
we should. That would be a really good idea.
This week's episode, we just speculate about what we might have said last week. So that's the endless cycle.
That's the next show. We'll just predict again.
Yeah.
So Calder coming out 2-1 victors against Heidelberg. If somebody would, Lachie, we'll start with you because we just speak to Oscar first by the other game. What did you think? How did you think the game went?
Well, I mean, it's got off in the sort of perfect fashion for Heidelberg in this case. They opened the scoring through a slightly controversial penalty, a handball call going against Montana Matthews, I believe, in the penalty box. I don't know how much she sort of knew about it, but we've had that happen on quite a number of occasions. Over the
Rossi.
Oh no, it was Alexis Rossi. Yeah, no, it was Alexis Rossi. You're quite right. But it was a controversial one. We've had a couple of those over the past few weeks, and then somewhat to the surprise, I think, of a few who were watching on, the resultant penalty kick was given to Catherine Vlahopoulos to take rather than perhaps a Steph Galea, the one of the players who are locked in that shootout. Danielle Wise.
Do we have what is the shootout? What's the numbers looking like? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I get those up.
I think last I checked, they're still dead even. I mean, they wouldn't have scored in this game.
Do you reckon that played into it a little bit? Team.
Yeah, if they're both scrapping for it, then neither can have it.
I think ahead of this weekend, it was Danielle Wise on 14 and Steph Galea on 11. So
she's broken clear.
I think so. It would therefore still be Danielle Wise on 14.
Yes.
Steph Galea on 11.
Well, anyway, there was a bit of conjecture, at least from the outside looking in, as to Catherine Vlahopoulos is taking the penalty. Interesting, but it mattered little in the end. She slotted it pretty calmly, and that sort of not left Calder with a mountain to climb, but with a challenge, I suppose, for them to win the game, retake top spot as well, because yes, they've got that game in hand, but they would have given themselves a 2-point lead at the top with the win. This
game is just very Calder of just slowly breaking teams down. Like, they don't beat you with the barrage of 4 or 5 goals, just really quick bursts of goals. Like, they will just slowly break your will, and you're just and then eventually
they will grind you down so much that you'll have no match for their long-range prowess, because in the second half, Calder built back up, and then Alana Cern.
Well, let's announce, her new title. Alana.
Yeah, well, this was before Alana Cern became the inaugural, which literally just happened today. Congratulations, Alana. Became the inaugural signing for Western United's W League squad. So we've been theorising and speculating all this time about what would this Calder Western United connection, what would it lead to, where would it culminate? Well, how much would it resemble the Calder squad, the Western United A-League women's squad? And we're seeing one step at the moment. We're 100% Calder Western crossover. Yes, there's one player, but it still counts. But player. she knew going into this game, and she had a bit of a pep in her step. Or what she definitely had was a rocket in her right foot, because she hit an unbelievable goal at the Ven into the bottom right corner to level things up. And I think that really set the tone, I think, for a grandstand sort of final 25 minutes for Calder, because the winning goal, they ended up pulling another spectacular finish out of the bag.
Yeah, it's like they were having a competition amongst themselves. I really felt like the Calder, they were like, you can do that, but I can do this better. And I actually want to know, whose goal do you think was better? Alana Chern? Look at me, pronunciation today.
I think Emma Rober's was better. We didn't really get to describe it, but basically, late stage of the game, a free kick gets sent in towards the back post by Alana Chern. There's a bit of a scramble on the edge of the penalty area. The ball just spills, and on the half volley, Emma Robers just unleashes this strike from the edge of the D that ends up in the bottom right. I mean, of all the ways you could possibly hope to win a game, that's about as well, I dare say, as you could possibly do it.
Her reaction was quite it was just a moment of whoa.
Yeah,
I did that.
I mean, I think that's the better of the two goals, but
I think in isolation that goal is better as well as the context of the game.
Okay.
I think that
I don't disagree.
I'm curious to know where you guys would rank it in goal of the season contention as well, because let's not forget, I mean, Alana Cern scored Cern? Jury's out. I'll have to speak to her. Alana Cern, that's what I'm going to roll with because it's what I used before, scored a great goal in this game. She also scored an absolute rocket earlier this year against FV Emerging in a 5-0 win. Melissa Taranto did the exact same thing. I think...
the game
I think Sarah, it was. Sarah Kane, I remember... I can still remember Taryn Hedo's call of Sarah Kane scoring... No, in fact, it was... Bella Seward's, scoring that equaliser against South Melbourne from all of 30, 35 yards. I mean, there has been some real quality. I'm interested to know where you guys would rank this against what else you've seen this year.
I think I'd have to re-watch some of them, but I think her goal earlier this season, I think, is a little bit more impressive.
I don't think we realised at the time just how far out that goal was.
I like that goal a lot. I was a big fan of that.
I mean, we're also ignoring the fact that she scored 5 goals for the year. She's a central defender.
Yeah, she's been phenomenal, and she's part of a key part of that. Probably the best defence we've seen in this competition.
She's a central defender. She scored 5 goals. She's 19.
She's not. That's so weird. You know, you saying that now. I knew it, but I didn't you don't really process information. The fact that she's 19,
I feel like you do get that a bit in this league where you're like, oh, you're extremely young. I wouldn't have picked that for you.
Exactly, but no, she's got a bright future, and you know, look forward to seeing her in the A-League Women's next year with Western United and see what they bring, because obviously this Calder side is incredible defensively. Are they going to bring this defensive back line to the NPLW, the A-League Women's? And if so, how well can they do, and how well can they stand up against some of these, so at least better players, if we're being honest, because a lot of, A-League Women's players have gone to the NPLW Sydney, so it would be interesting to see how that all, evens itself out.
The good old NPLW Sydney, as they call it. No, that's fine. I'll let it slide.
Can I be honest with you? Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I am not feeling well, and I just feel like it's a bit rude of you just to be so mean to me on air while I'm suffering here, Oscar, and I've allowed you on my show.
Remember, you're only a guest, and Pokuah is the overlord.
I take it back, I'm sorry.
No, it just hurts me. Why would you be like that? Why would you be like that, Oscar?
I think it's also an interesting test of Mark Torcaso's coaching to see whether that can translate into...
No, you know what? He's not allowed on the show anymore. I'm sick, so
I'm just going to ignore your question and skim past it and say...
I'm not feeling the best. Leave me alone, man.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Pokuah.
You should be. It's my show.
I feel like I need to break up a frosty dynamic
a lot of tension,
here.
isn't
I
there?
can't believe I have to be the light here. I'm so often the shade.
I am not. Yeah, okay.
Anyway, before we move on, does anyone else want to submit a potential goal of the season contender? Because...
There was an Olympico this weekend.
That's true. I mean, there was technically 2. I think Bella Seward's goal in the 2-0 win over South at Lakeside was... It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I'll tell you a goal that's probably not, but it was a really good goal that I liked. I don't know if we talked about a lot. Was Francesca Iamano's goal a few weeks ago, where she was out. Oh, I can't remember who they were playing, but she's on the right hand side and she's kind of crossed it in. It was just out of nowhere. It was very...
Oh, against Bayside.
Yeah.
It was against Bayside. I know exactly the goal you're talking about. No, I think that's a that's a pretty good shout.
Yeah.
Bella Stringfellow scored a decent goal a couple of weeks ago in her hat-trick against Bayside too.
Yep.
There was a great winner for South Melbourne for Katrina Tolios.
Corinne Tolios,
a few weeks ago.
Alamein, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was against Alamein.
Or was it drawing goal, I think?
It was a level against Alamein. That was up there as well.
I just really wouldn't overlook how good that Emma Rober's goal was, though. I was so impressed by it, just in terms of the multiple times. How good was the flick over the head to set it up and then struck it so sweetly. That was unstoppable. That was as good a goal in terms of what is I would say a replicable skill, something that you practice rather than a freak incident. She absolutely nailed it.
No, you're not wrong there. And I think we'll have the own goal of the season contender when we get to our final game, the second and last game we talk about.
Well, final question for you guys about this game. The upshot, this probably, you would imagine, barring any stuns, it probably wraps up the premiership for Calder. I mean, Heidelberg have given it a good fist to get it to just 3 games. They are still a mathematical chance, but you start to look at it as, you know, Calder win their game in hand. They beat Box Hill. That's something you'd expect them to do, even though they have dropped points against Box Hill earlier this season, very earlier this season. I think it was the opening day that they had a draw there. But you'd expect them to win both of those games. They'd have a 5-point lead if they win the catch-up game.
And then they play Bayside.
And then they play Bayside as well. Heidelberg have done well to stretch it to within sort of 3 games to end the season, but this is probably that, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it should be, and unless something like out of a little bit extraordinary. And I say that just because of how great Calder's season has been. Yeah, unless something cold as, like, I don't know, fall asleep and they don't play a game, I think it's pretty wrapped up now.
I do just have one more thought. I've just had a potential theory as to the Heidelberg penalty taker situation. Perhaps that's Jono Clemente abdicating responsibility from having to choose between his 2 Golden Boot competitors and saying, I'm not going to get involved. I think that Kath Vlahopoulos should take the penalties.
I think it should have been rock, paper, scissors to decide it personally.
Do you remember when Jess Fishlock and Kim Little did that in the W League Grand Final?
Yeah.
I think it was 2015-16.
I'll allow the W League, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, it was W League then. Sorry, that's the reason I was referring to it in its original form.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just sparked
I
to
just
mind.
feel like now, if, you know, retroactively think about, I think Kim Little should, you know, always be taking.
No, I agree.
Kim Little is the GOAT, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who used to support Arsenal and someone who presently supports Scotland, there's a few players that I like more than Kim Little.
Because she's actually currently in America at the moment on loan. But we'll head to the next game of the weekend. And was Bayside hosted... Bayside?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
look at me.
FC Bulleen Lions at Kingston Heath.
My vision went, don't worry, look at me.
3:30 p.m. This was where I got the result right, scoreline wrong.
Yeah,
I got the margin right, but you don't get points for the margin.
It would have been hard to get 4-0, like, perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, Bayside... they didn't score. You know, I'm currently on the watch of will Bayside score. That's my favourite game at the moment. It's been my favourite side mission of the NPLW. But Bulleen managed to score 4. And Oscar, what did you think of the game this weekend?
Well, look, I don't know how much there is to say about when we see Bayside get beaten comprehensively, as we have a number of times this season. I mean, I think it's an important result for Bulleen just to... as contributing to getting a roll on as they head towards the finals, bouncing back from their loss against Calder as well. So I think it came in a good time for Bulleen just to get back in the winner's circle and get that good feeling going again, because we've seen them in the second half of the season drop off a little bit. They haven't quite managed to maintain that same standard that we saw in the first half of the season when they were keeping pace with Heidelberg and Calder. So I think watch out for Bulleen, really, is what I'm trying to say, is if they can get that, as I say, get that momentum flowing again, really start feeling like they're ready to compete at the highest level in this division, then there's no reason that they can't run either Heidelberg or Calder right to the line when in the actual final series.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And looking at their goal scorers, it's just a lot of the usual suspects, because Lanneburn, Vlanich, Jankowski, just every time you turn around, every time you think of Bulleen playing well, they're the players that come to your mind they're probably the forefront of your mind. So
yeah,
it's good that they're, you know, in the goal scoring action and heading into really the critical part of the season.
Yeah, and maybe a good thing for them that they, at least on the evidence of this game, taking a bit of example out of the book of Calder United as well, because that opening goal from Alana Byrne, I mean, we were pontificating about goal of the season contenders, and I don't think that opening goal was a million miles away, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, TJ Vlanic had a pretty impressive chip over the top of the Bayside keeper, Lauren Ferrugia. We really were treated to quite a spectacular weekend. And the midweek game wasn't half bad either, actually. But I think that one was probably more, I'm going to be a bit, not harsh, maybe uncharitable, and say that was a bit fortuitous, perhaps, that chip over the top of Lauren Ferrugia. I hope TJ Vlanic, if she's listening, isn't too upset by my suggestion of that one.
No, you might be being harsh, but you know what? Football is subjective when you're talking about which sport you like better, and no, I think that aspect is subjective. Oscar, you looking at me like that? But for Bayside, another. I don't know what's going on. Hey, you know what? There's beef today. There's beef. You know what, Lachie? I'm going to be honest with you, Lachie. I don't know if he'll be back next week.
Me?
No, him. I don't know.
Oh, right, yeah. I was going to say, we're going to like head to an ad break. The graphic's going to come up, and then the graphic's going to go away, and Oscar's just going to have a black eye. It's like, what's happening?
I don't believe in violence. Yeah. I don't believe violence. But yeah, for Bayside, just another really difficult game for them, and yeah, they have their moments, where.
Actually, yeah, it just reminded me with Bayside, the difficulty of this season. Obviously, is this potentially a good chance? And this is a sort of topic of discussion without notice, but I think it's as good a time as any to inject it into the fold. The news that broke over the weekend that we'll have 4. Potentially, depending on licensing requirements being met and all that sort of stuff. 4 new teams coming into the NPLW from next season. So Bayside may be getting some much-needed company, potentially. Teams who they'll be like, oh, maybe we can we can get a result against these two. It's still up in the air as to who those 4 will be. I mean, Preston and Burundara, you can pretty much guarantee Southern United. But then the 4th spot is still a bit up for grabs.
As an individual from the city of Casey, I would love to see the Casey Comets. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're in 4th. Yeah, I would like that to happen.
They are in the right place at not the right time.
They are my local club, I guess, if we, so I would like to see that happen for Casey Comets, for the. I mean, I
think from a.
I'd like everybody's house to travel down to where we are instead of us always having to travel far.
And I think the results are one thing, but you also have to, consider the sort of eligibility for being an NPLW club, and I actually think that of those kind of teams that are competing for a spot, Casey Comets would be up there in terms of aptitude. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see South Yarra finish in that 4th spot and be able to do NPLW games 10 minutes away from my house. But South Yarra play, with all due respect, they play at Faulkner Park. It's a public park. Yeah. The games that are filmed in the VPL women's that they currently play are filmed from pitch level. They would need to do a power of work to really get that sort of up to the standard of even some of the lower end grounds in the top flight. They would still be in advance of a Faulkner Park. But those teams may be in the 3rd and 4th position, especially given we know the struggles that Southern had last time they were in the NPLW. Bayside might be looking at that and thinking, well, it's not been a great year for us this year, but next year might be a little bit more competition down the foot of the table. Maybe even something different altogether. There might be some competition, but I also think with the likes of Preston coming up, if anybody has seen Preston, if you guys have been watching Preston this season, they are a scary side. I think they honestly, they are competing very highly if they were in the NPLW right now. You wouldn't be shocked to see Preston become a top half, even a top 4 team within their first season. I mean, they have got players.
They've got the right infrastructure, coaching, players, just a really committed team, and they probably attract a lot of really great A-League women's players who are coming down.
Yeah, well, I mean, that they've not only that, but they've got players who, many of them have CVs of playing at a decent level with good NPLW clubs who have dropped down because of the allure and the prestige of playing at Preston, using Preston's facilities, but also the rumour as well is that there might be some of those players who are actually good enough to even qualify for that A-League women's level potentially. So, Preston are by no stretch of the imagination. I mean, Mel Garcia, who's now moved on from Preston, is a former Heidelberg United legend. But the reason she's moved on from Preston is because she's into a professional deal in Iceland. So, I didn't know how many teams were going to be promoted into the top flight, but I think 4 is quite exciting. I think that'll bring some sort of much needed, not just competition, but also variety of like what we can, as fans, as watchers of the NPLW, what narratives we can sort of invest in. Because at the moment, particularly, this might change with the Western Partnership as well. At the moment, it's will Calder win, most likely finals race. And we don't have much else. So I think this will bring some much needed variance to the league.
And I think it's important to remember that as kind of the salient point in all of this is how beneficial having 4 new teams will be for the division as a whole. Full stop, but especially as we're discussing, and Preston is a prime example of that, of footballing institutions, football clubs with power and with some kind of reputation and ability to attract more eyes and to spice up the NPLW here in Victoria. So you've got, obviously footballing institutions like Preston Lions, and then particularly in the women's game in this state, where I'm looking at the likes of Southern United and Casey Comets as well, how that makes, I suppose, the NPLW feel more whole as a competition and as a reflection of women's football in this state.
Well, and also the other thing that I just thought, because you mentioned Southern United, is next year going to be the first time that we see an NPLW player also be an NPLW match caller? Because Melissa Barbieri has had a brilliant season for Southern United. I mean, a lot of the points that they have earned, or in some cases saved, have been because of the performances that she's put in. I mean, we know she's dropped down from South in the NPLW to play with Southern United. So how does that affect the commentary landscape? Will she be commentating while playing? Can we get her mic'd up as a Southern United keeper? I'm not sure if we have the facilities for that.
The cameras from Bubs' goal,
but again, you're talking about
on her head.
You're talking about variance, the injection of fresh narratives, and even if it is a slightly silly one, I mean, not that you expect anything else from me, but the potential to have someone who is calling the games and also playing in the games, not at the same time but separately, is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think that was great chat, really good. But you know what? There is one more. There was one more game. There was one more game for this weekend. There was one more game. I feel like wanted to. Well, there's a few games.
Great chat, really good. But let's move on from what you two blatherers have to say. That was
really nice. Good job. Yep,
that's great.
Continue.
So we had FE Emerging hosting South Melbourne, and FE Emerging came out 6-2 victors. Even though the scoreboard...
Didn't get the score in this one, I'm going to be honest. Didn't even get the result in this one.
You didn't get the... What do you mean you didn't get the result?
Prediction-wise.
Oh, you prediction...
I'm still playing. Some of us listened back to the predictions we make.
Yeah, of course. Even though the scoreboard did tell you a different score for much of the first half, Oscar, you did do the game, so you probably knew the score the whole time. Some people at home maybe didn't. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I would like
I should hope that Oscar would know the score the whole time. I was going to say,
when FE were piling in the goals of the second half, I was starting to get worried that I'd forgotten one or taken one. Anyway, that's not important. Yeah, no, that's right. FE Emerging running over the top, really, of South Melbourne. I thought South started the game better than FE Emerging, so that's when they got their opening goal. But really from about the half...
I will say that own goal from South could be own goal of the season contender. That was quite spectacular.
It was really unfortunate for Mila Bullich.
But very spectacular.
It was an attempt to clear the ball. She caught it sweet. It went way high up in the air, over the goalkeeper, and then it's really unfortunate that it bounced where it did and ended up in the back of the net, because just like a few centimetres further forward or further back, and it would have either bounced over the top or just come off the crossbar or something. So it was extreme misfortune for Mila Bullich for that opening goal. But it wasn't undeserved, I didn't think, for South to be in front. From the half-hour mark of the first half, though, I thought FE Emerging were playing like the better team, and that persisted for really the remainder of the game. They got their equaliser. South scored their second against the run of play. It was from a corner. It was an Olympico, if you will, from Akeisha Sandhu. Another spectacular goal that we saw this weekend.
I will say, great really nice corner. There was some questionable goalkeeping occurring in that moment, I will be honest with you.
But then the second half, it was a different game. FV Emerging came out and absolutely ran over the top of South Melbourne. As someone who was physically present, I can attest to the fact that the conditions were challenging, to put it lightly. The camera was blown over at half-time from its standing position. Such was the wind at Knox Regional Football Centre. And how much of a factor was it? I can't say, but it was certainly blowing in FV Emerging's direction and made it very difficult for South Melbourne to escape from their own half.
I mean, South Melbourne was certainly happy to contend with that reality. Their full-time post did suggest that the Emerging ran out comfortable winners in the end with the aid of a huge second half wind. I mean, it was significant.
It was significant when Jenna Farrow's trying to do like a long goal kick up the park. It doesn't really go very far.
I guess what I'm driving at though was it a 4-goal? Was it a 4-goal wind?
5.
Was it a 5-goal wind?
Is there such thing as a 5-goal wind?
It was in the footy, mate.
That's right.
You
can say no.
Yeah, you really can.
Or yes.
Just have your own convictions.
It's a very
I'm
simple
such an
question.
agreeable person.
On this show,
say?
we like to have our own opinions. So if you would like to disagree with Lachie, you're more than welcome to do that.
It was. I believe that it was possible for South to have not conceded 5 goals in that second half.
Wow, sensational stuff there, Oscar. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm here for the hard takes.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly how alarmed would you be if you were South to have suffered this result? Obviously, would have to be pretty much perfect. They'd have to win all of their games to end the season to give themselves a chance. They are probably long odds at this point. FE Emerging, on the other hand, not so. Does this kind of result, or the performance, I think more importantly, give them sort of cause for concern going into probably the most important game of their season this coming Sunday in the Nike FC Cup final? Well,
it reinforced a consistent message, I think, with South this season. I mean, so there were a couple of really key absences from the South lineup, being Caitlin Pickett and being Yana Lawson, sorry.
She was suspended.
Who was suspended, yes, that's right. So a couple of key attacking absences for South Melbourne. You see that in the lineup before the game, and you're going, is it going to be really tough for South to create opportunities to score? And the answer is, as much as their goals were freak goals, that didn't look like their downfall. They were able to get into dangerous positions. They could have scored goals, and they did score goals, and I didn't feel like that was what was holding South back. The thing that held South back on Sunday, and as has been the case really this season, was that their defence was leaky, was that they weren't solid enough at the back, and FE Emerging were able to exploit that. They scored 5 goals in the second half. That wasn't undeserved by any means. They were peppering the goal, putting lots of pressure on Jenna Farrow, and that's ultimately been what has let South down this season. So kind of the opposite, if you will, heading into Sunday of their opponents, Calder. I think it does. I think what that means, though, is that it's not outside the realm of possibility for South to spring an upset on Sunday, insofar as they're capable of scoring. They're capable of. It is against the strongest defence in the league, one of the strongest defences we've ever seen, but they're capable of getting on the score sheet, from which point, throw everybody behind the ball, for example, and try to defend. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion what happens on Sunday, even though South's league campaign has large, they play Heidelberg and Calder the next 2 weeks in the league. The odds of them making finals are pretty much shot. So, and that is a product of an ineffective defence.
You're not wrong there, Oscar, and sorry, I got caught. I thought
you're also not right though.
I was going to say.
I thought Lachie was about to speak, so I'd like.
Well, I mean, if you're ready to move on with this game, I do actually have one more thing to add about the fixture. Something that caught my eye on the starting 11 for this game. A player who we thought had been lost to South Melbourne's NPLW and Nike FC Cup campaigns for the remainder of this season after she announced that her game in the Nike FC Cup final for South Melbourne against Heidelberg would be her last for the year. Kat Goff well, she was back.
She was.
She started this game, and it looks like the bite of South Melbourne never left her. That brief stretch that she had away, and she's back. She's looking like she's going to see out the rest of the season. I mean, we were speaking off air to Caitlin Pickett before about the cup final, about Kat Goff, and basically, she told us that Goffey stopped playing, but she hasn't left the group chats.
It's the love of the game.
She hasn't stopped turning up to the games. She pretty much hadn't given up, and they almost knew that she was at some point going to come back. She did in this game, and while it wasn't, an inclusion that led to the result on the day, it is still a big boost to have a leader like that returning ahead of a cup final. Because let's not forget, Kat Goff is the most senior player in this South Melbourne team. At 26, she's somehow the oldest in the squad, which is quite remarkable. But a good to see her back, and a good boost for South heading into the match against Calder.
And if I can say, you could see how much she relished being back, because that start of the game, she was running so hard, she was physical, she was into contests and challenges, and got her head over the footy. But
nice.
And it was great to see her, and in the nick of time for South, of course, missing those other two attacking outlets.
Yes. Well, it looks like Caitlin Pickett will be back for this Sunday. Jana Lawson has served her suspension, so they're all the inclusions coalescing to create a potential headache for Calder.
Millhouse, that's right.
No, they really are. And but you know what, though? I feel like maybe she said to herself, I think this is it. But then she's just to hype herself up even more for that game against Heidelberg. And then she was just like, what? For the love of the game.
Well, look, I think if you don't leave the group chat, you're not going to leave. You're not going to leave the playing, are you?
That's what Caitlin Pickett told us. She never left the group chat. And I feel like until the group chat has been left, until, you've done that final, washing of your kit and, it's packed away.
That's true.
Have you really left is the question we need to ask.
I feel like the consensus is if you can't leave the group chat, that's the bit that's going to keep you hooked. Yeah. You were never really trying to leave, were you?
The South kid on her mannequin at home, just looking at it.
She was looking at it.
She walked in.
She got home. She was like,
look at it. There was dramatic music in the background. Yeah.
You know what? She turned to, it wasn't, the mannequin wasn't facing her the first time.
I can't do it again.
And then the mannequin one day.
You're making Kat Goff sound like Batman.
No, Kat Goff might as well be Batman.
I was also thinking Frozone.
The Flash.
Either way.
Frozone's pretty cool. But,
Is that why she wasn't playing? Because Kat Goff actually lost her super suit. Her South Melbourne suit was in the wash.
Yeah. Where's nice?
Why do you need to know?
We need to stop with these. We need to be better. We are better than this.
Just need to stop generally, I think.
But the final game of the Wolves...
It wasn't of the weekend, but it was sort of the week, of the ones we haven't covered.
Of yesterday, but from June 25th was the match weekend, actually, I believe. Yeah, it was June 25th match weekend.
I'll back you in.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and I believe that is correct.
Perfect.
That was played last night at the Veneto Club. I don't know why I said it like that.
I liked it. I didn't hate it.
I'll try. We'll find
Not wrong.
But not right either.
I feel like I need to start sitting in the middle of you two. Keep you apart.
But FC Bulleen Lions came out 4-2 victors over FV Emerging. FV Emerging, bit of a weird weekend. Started with the high being South Melbourne 6-2, and then just to that 4-2 loss to Bulleen. What were your guys? What we thought of the games? I can't remember who I started with last time.
Look, I'm not going to profess to claim a heap of in-depth knowledge about this game, mainly because I was on the Australia Cup Twitter space at the time covering Melbourne Victory Western United, so I didn't get
Do you cover football, Lachie?
I'm not going to say what I was going to say because we'd have to use I'd have to use the bleeper button, and I don't want to give myself too much work to do. But I was watching the Australia Cup game between those two, so I didn't get the chance to watch this one live. But it seemed on the face of it, having watched back the highlights and looked at the stats, like it was just a really good game. And a quick fire game. Like it didn't explode the whole time. It wasn't just this one big fire, but it just had sort of different patches of the game where it seemed to explode, because once once FC Bulleen Lions took the lead on the 21st minute through a really not actually well-composed goal, I thought, from Bulleen down the right flank. The ball comes in. Rosie Roger with the sort of presence of mind to let it roll across to TJ Vlanic, who finished pretty comfortably in the end past Charlotte Horrison. Well, they managed to score a goal 3 minutes after that. And then, there was a bit of a lull, and then FE Emerging got their goal. They got a lifeline back into the contest. And then within minutes as well, they had levelled. So it wasn't constantly, there weren't spot fires everywhere, but when this game was going, it was going off.
Yeah, it was very FE Emerging like to just find their way back into a game, and you've not really figured out how they've done it, because they haven't been very convincing, but they've just kind of, and I think the Bulleen kind of allowed them in this game to get back in, because I think Bulleen are the better of the two sides comfortably. And had they just been a little bit more composed, I don't think FE Emerging would
I
come
do
back.
like that you've indirectly coined the phrase FE Emerging Energy.
Have I
It's
done
like the vibe of FE. It's like very FE energy, to do that. What is FE Emerging Energy?
It's
Good
just
question.
young and just living their best life. And you know what? Taking...
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you do get that a bit with FE Emerging. They are under Helen Winterburn, who we should add became the inaugural assistant coach for Mark Torcaso at Western United. Very good news, very richly
Congratulations to her.
deserved.
Big news from Western today.
Yeah,
Last
they're
week.
making all the moves. They kind of have to. That is what happens when you create a club, but you don't have any of the assets needed to actually run the club. But I'm enjoying it nonetheless.
The assets.
Yeah, it's very depersonalized. Look at me. You can tell the football manager player in the room. Yes, great asset you will be, Alana said. They're very committed to their approach. Like, FE Emerging clearly have an idea of the kind of player they want to be molding and developing, and clearly those ideals are set up, are agreed, and they're not too willing to sort of break away from that. And I think we saw this sort of come to a head with the third goal for FC Bulleen Lions, because FE Emerging almost always, without fail, will attempt to play the ball out of their back four, and it will always start with Charlotte Horrison. It will get knocked around that back four until they can try and find a sort of a gap in the midfield line, and then they can sort of overload the forward areas and the wide areas. And it works sometimes. I do enjoy watching FE Emerging games, but I think on the other side of the coin, we have seen them concede quite a few goals in that manner where they do lose the ball as they're trying to progress it out from the back, and that ends up costing them. And to be honest,
it's just sometimes
it's okay. Like, that's okay.
It's sometimes
that's okay.
Watching FE, it's like they know the system, but sometimes when the really, really difficult moments, they don't trust the system. And I you see that a lot with FE when they concede goals from the back and they're trying to play out. They just they don't trust the next pass and trust somebody's going to be there for them, and then they kind of just, it breaks up the play really quickly.
Yeah, and it's particularly in that back third of the pitch, and I think that's the crucial thing, is because once they get into the midfield third and the front third, they can do some really, really impressive stuff. I mean, the goals they put together, Rosie Curtis scoring the goal that got them back into the game, and then Sarah Kane getting back-to-back goals for the leveller. I mean, they were impressive. They came as a result of decent passing sequences. But yeah, I mean, they would have loved to have gotten a draw against Bulleen again in this game, but they weren't able to do it. I mean, it doesn't really matter because they're still in with a very good shot of taking that fourth spot off Alamein.
No, it's going to be really interesting final few games, because I believe we've got 3 more games left for this season.
Yes.
Very exciting heading into finals. But you know what? There is a finals coming, and it's...
Just one sec. I just want to make one more point. I just want to make one more point, which is to say...
Sorry, is he allowed to make
Yeah,
that?
you're right. Am I allowed to?
Go for it.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. My overlord.
Pokuah.
Oh, no, I forgot my point. If we talk about trends which have undermined teams' seasons, and if it's South Melbourne and their defence, I think for FE Emerging, and this isn't unique to FE Emerging, but I think they're the best representative of an inconsistency and how inconsistent teams can be, I think, in this division, especially because of the prominence of young players. And of course, FE Emerging are the
epitome of young
players. The epitome of young players. And so I think we see that reflected in their results. I mean, even the last few weeks, I'm looking back and going, They lost to Bulleen, they beat South Melbourne, they lost to Heidelberg, they beat Calder. It's just flipping back and forth. I mean, they lost to Bayside 2 weeks before they beat Calder. It's their best is very good. They just I guess the question is lessening the gap between their best and their worst.
And look, part of that as well is down to the fact that this is a squad that is always going to be fluctuating.
Yes.
Like they bring a lot of players in and out of the side. The older heads of this side, 22, 23, 18, 19, but the youngest can be, 15, 16.
I guess
it's
for
stark.
V, obviously they would, like every team would love to win the league, but their measure of success is different to other teams' measure of success, and having their players from their squad go and play for the under 20s, the Australia, young Matilda squad. That's a measure of success for them. So
we'll talk about success on a ladder position, and they'll come back to us and they'll say, well, Caitlin Carriage, Alana Cordolino, Silva Bell Morris, Isabella Ricardo, all in young and junior Matildas selection.
And that's what's more important to them. And I think that's, beneficial for the wider football system. Like if players from them are getting those opportunities and, developing those skills early on, it would be nice to have more consistency. But obviously they're in a different position to everybody else.
Well, it's kind of part of the parcel of the team there. And that's okay.
It is.
And the success that they've had this season is absolutely testament to Helen Winterburn's coaching. The fact that they're able to get as many positive results as they are and play as well as they do when they're run, I think is one of the most impressive coaching jobs in the division, to be completely frank. I really think so.
Yeah. And, we'll see how they go for the rest of the season with their 3 games left and see if they can make it into finals. But you know what? There is a finals this weekend.
There's a final. Singular.
Well,
the culmination of finals.
There is another one on Saturday we don't speak about on the show, and there's one on
We've already done our plug.
We don't care anymore. And there's one on Sunday that we do really love and care about. And someone on the show today, Lachie Flanagan, will be on the broadcast.
So I will be there.
We'll hear the sweet sounds of Lachie Flanagan telling us the facts,
delivering you the mood and the atmosphere from the sideline. It's a great, if you're after credentialed NPLW Victoria figures, it is the place to be, really. Play-by-play call. The place to be at the end of the day is the Valley Park Events Centre. But if you can't make it there, you can watch the game on Optus. It'll also be on Facebook
really
and YouTube.
cool,
so it's on Optus Sport for the second year running. That's a great result.
Who's doing the call this
Joey Lynch, so one of the most experienced, I think, NPLW callers. That's not fair to say. I think it's a fact to say that. But I will also be very lucky to be joined by Gabby Garton. Yep. So Melbourne Victory and FC Bulleen Lions keeper, recently returned from a maternity leave. And Heidelberg United head coach Jono Clemente will also be there. So yes, I will be on the sidelines delivering you all the little
You'll be our radio dub
the bits that you miss when you are foolish enough to stay at home. I do joke, please watch the stream. I would love as many people to be watching me as possible, because I'm a narcissist, but also because I think it'll be a great game.
Honestly, I do think it's going to be a great game, and we did speak to Caitlin Pickett about it, and she's looking forward to the game, and she said that the semi-final was probably the highlight of the season, but to win would ultimately be the best. And I'm excited to see that team play. I would like to see South win. Calder's won it too many times. They reckon?
Yeah, I think they're staring down the barrel of a fifth consecutive Nike FC Cup win. Obviously, these two sides met one another in the previous year's instalment of the Nike FC Cup final. It ended quite convincingly in favour of South Melbourne, in favour of Calder, although it was a very different South Melbourne side that took the field to the one that featured in the regular season. This one's probably a bit more akin to that side in the sense that it is very, very young. But I guess the fundamental question about this game for me is, because it goes without saying that Calder go in as favourites, you expect them to win, but how much can South Melbourne kind of separate? And you do see teams show their capability to do this in football sometimes, separate their league performance and results from their cup performance and results, because their cup performance and results have been, I mean, frankly, excellent. Yes, they did get to the final through what was quite a weakened field. They played a lot of state league sides. They obviously drew the only state league side remaining in the sort of the quarters, and they swept aside Caroline Springs George Cross pretty easy, I think 16-0. But the Heidelberg performance was probably the best game I've seen them play all year. And if they can replicate that in the final, they've got a chance.
Because their second half performance against Heidelberg was really good. Like, it wasn't like a fluke. Like obviously there was a sliding doors moment with Danielle Wise, I believe, who hit the crossbar, I think, or she missed
just past the apex of goal. Yeah, just past. And that was like sliding doors moment. But in that second half when they came out, they were the better of the two sides, and it wasn't close. And I think that they have shown, as you just stated before, Lachie, that they can separate it. Can they do it for one more game, the biggest game? I'm not sure, but I would like to see them do it, because I want a really competitive game. I don't want to see, Calder win by 4 or 5-0. Like, I want to see competitive, and I think if they can get it to be competitive and keep it at 0-0 and it be a shootout, like close to the end, then South Melbourne have just as much chance as as anybody else if they were playing.
And I think the thing worth remembering about the semi-final win against Heidelberg was right after they parted ways with Sam Young.
It was the day off.
It was literally the day of Sam Young's departure and George Georgiadis stepping up from under-19s coach to coaching the senior team, or from coaching the juniors to coaching the seniors. And so I think that says something perhaps about the capacity for George Georgiadis to get his team pumped up for a big occasion and for a big game, and to play above the level or the standard that we've come to expect from South Melbourne this season. And they, of course, did that in the previous round of the Nike FC Cup against Heidelberg in a game but they were absolutely not expected to win, let alone be as competitive as they were. So there are reasons, if you're perhaps a South fan, to be hopeful that perhaps an upset isn't beyond the realm of possibility.
I wanted to put a question to you both as to what you guys saw as the potential sort of key matchup in this game, the important sort of one-to-one, because I've got one of my own, and it comes from someone who we spoke to earlier today.
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting sort of head-to-head battles in this game. We don't necessarily know for sure that it's going to be this battle, because obviously Calder have got a variety of central defenders that they can pick, but we could see Caitlin Pickett line up against Alana Cern, two players who we've spoken about a lot in this installment of Radio Dub. And it's fascinating because one centre back, one striker, but they have scored the same amount of goals in the league this season. But what's interesting about it is Caitlin Pickett has been pretty much all season, alongside Akeisha Sandhu, one of the few non-Calder members to be a part of the Western United development squad. So the squad that's been getting an extra, pretty much, working at a professional capacity, getting that extra training session in to prepare themselves potentially for making that step up. So Caitlin Pickett is coming up against these Calder players as opponents, but she would be extremely familiar with them, and particularly with Alana Cern. So has that given her the chance to pick up a few tricks, spot a few chinks in the armour of that Calder defence, who have only conceded 6 this season? It's going to be fascinating, and I think if there is someone who is uniquely placed to maybe break this game open in favour of South, it could well be Caitlin Pickett or Akeisha Sandhu, with that extra knowledge and sixth sense they have of Calder.
Yeah, we did ask her if she brought the notepad out there, but obviously they haven't had training in the last few weeks due to availability.
Caitlin Pickett's like David Brent. It's all up here.
But we sensed it from her that I think she knows she's been looking right foot, left foot. She's going to come in on the inside, coming on the outside. I think it's going to be really. That is the matchup that I am looking forward to the most, just because that Calder defence is sensational, and I'm really keen to see how the Taranto sisters go in their midfield as well.
Well,
I do love watching them play.
Oscar, do you have a suggestion? Because I just thought of a second, but you go if you've got.
Well, it's hard to disagree with the argument that you both have put forward. I agree that is perhaps the key to whether South can get something out of this. I will add one other point, which is just looking at the other end of the pitch as a question of how well South's defence holds up. I mean, I know I spoke a lot previously about South Melbourne and their leaky defence. I think what gets lost in amongst how good Calder's defence is, which it is spectacular, is that they're going forward very dangerous too. They've scored more goals than anyone else in the division. I mean, they've scored 44 to Heidelberg's 41 with a game in hand. I mean, we don't talk about that as much.
We don't really think about them scoring lots of goals.
That's right. We don't talk about it as much because of how good their defence is.
And also I think the other reason we don't talk about it is because there isn't a front runner for the scoring of those goals. It is really an across the park contribution when we look at the sort of official goal scoring charts for Calder.
Which sums up Calder as a footballing team, as an institution, if you will. So for me, I know they won their semi-final against Heidelberg 3-2, but I think that the important part of the pitch to look at is how well South's defence can hold up and if that can keep them in the game for a long enough period of time.
I think that the first 10 minutes of the game and the first 10 minutes after halftime will decide that game for them, because if they do not settle and if they aren't able to just retain some level of possession, because obviously Calder are going to probably have the ball more, but if they can just retain possession a little bit and just be calm with it and just weather that storm early on, they can see themselves to create more opportunities for themselves.
And if Calder get an early goal, let alone two, I mean, the game becomes so much harder for South and it becomes a whole different proposition. He's trying to break down a Calder side who have a lead to defend.
Heidelberg provided opportunities for South to get back into that game, but Calder will not be as giving. They aren't as generous. They aren't. They're not Santa Claus. They are. They're not giving.
Dude, they are not.
They're not. They're giving maybe coal. So you've just got to be a little bit more cautious and you just ride your luck.
Yeah, just to touch back on what I was saying earlier, Adriana Taranto, Alana Cern, Raquel Doralis and Stacey Papadopoulos. So 4 separate goal scorers with 5. They are equal first in the club goal scoring charts for Calder. So 4 players with 5 goals and then Alex Sinclair on 4. So they really have shared the load. The other thing I wanted to add in terms of potentially important battles, and it's something that we've seen emerge over the course of the season, and she was a very important player actually in the comeback against Heidelberg. Her midfield play was Grace Taranto. Now she'll be directly up against 2 of her namesakes, the twins in Adriana and Melissa Taranto. So the Taran trio in midfield is just from a humour perspective.
The smile on your face.
If nothing else, I was like, bang! I was waiting for it for so long. To see that sort of Taran trio battle with one another in midfield. Thank God I've got control of the panel sometimes. I'd be in so much trouble if I didn't. But that'll be really interesting because those 2 are combative, live wire midfields who can get forward and be that goal scoring threat. So Grace Taranto, if she is potentially playing as that deepest lying midfielder, of course we don't know for absolute certain, she'll have a job on her hands trying to screen those 2 and all the other Calder threats too.
They need 2 more Tarantos and it'll be like a Ninja Turtle Taranto squad?
No, I didn't like that one as much.
No, but that's just tea. I was trying to do alliteration.
Only I can make the jokes. I'm just joking. I did like Teenage Mutant Ninja Tarantos. That was good. We workshopped that one. We got there. We got there in the end. Anyway, trying to make a serious footballing point here. The other thing that obviously Grace Taranto, the equalising goal she was able to get in the South Melbourne game was, in the Heidelberg game, was because she was able to provide that third man run out of that deep lying midfield position and get herself actually into the box as a penalty area threat. Now, will she have that luxury coming up against a Calder side who, are lethal enough in possession, let alone if they've got space in behind to exploit? So how she sort of, if she is indeed playing in defensive midfield to start this game, how she sort of positions herself and works with the rest of her midfield with Nikisha Sandu, Francesca Iamano, if she slots back into midfield as well, how they coordinate with one another to make sure they're not leaving too much space in behind, I think is also going to be really, really, really critical.
Of course, we've also seen Grace play at centre-back, though, this season, so you wonder whether there will be that temptation to add that extra security at the back, that physicality that Grace Taranto provides, and maybe Georgiadis will see that as a better use of her abilities for this one.
Yeah. Fascinating I'm curious to know where, especially because of how good she was when she played in that position in the last Nike FC Cup game. It does create a bit of a headache, because I think in the same way that physicality, that combativeness could be useful at the centre of defence, I think it could also be useful to act as a disruptor for that same physical quality that the Taranto twins, or sisters rather, can bring.
Yes. And you know what? I'm excited to see how they play, and we will get all those answers. Yes, Oscar. What's up, Oscar?
I'm like an annoying student who keeps wanting to ask extra questions to the teacher. I just wanted to make one last point, just about
another point. Oh,
yeah, I know.
Sorry.
No, another one.
God. Jeez. Is this a football podcast or something? God.
About the importance for South of not going behind early. Just when we talked about...
I thought we already made that point. Yeah.
We did, and I'm going to go back to it because now I've got a statistic to further...
Your English teachers would have been very proud of you in year 12.
Emphasise, underscore, to further substantiate the relevance of this point, which is that the 2 times that Calder have lost this season, they didn't get in front, is what I'm trying to say. It is that they conceded
they went
first.
Behind, yeah.
Yeah, I could have... that wasn't my cleanest expression of that point. But in both the games against FV Emerging and against Heidelberg, they conceded first. I'm saying they haven't gotten in front and lost a game this season.
That's okay. You got there and then. You underscored your point very well.
Thank you.
I like that. You know what?
Sorry.
We will find out all the answers to these questions that we have, and we'll see if they put in any of these points that we've talked about. On Sunday.
I wonder if they're listening.
Yeah, hopefully. Come on, guys. Surely. You've got to be listening. But Sunday, 4 p.m, South Melbourne versus Calder United at, where is it, Lachie?
The Valley Park Event Centre.
And where will we find you if we are at the ground?
Well, if you look at the pitch at the Valley Park Event Centre, there is 2, so make sure you're looking at the one that has the grandstand next to it, because the other one... I would be shocked if you saw a game played on there. Maybe between some kids, but not the actual proper...
So you'll be on that ground?
No. Good. Nice.
Nice.
Brilliant. Love it. I will be on the side of the pitch, probably. If you look for the idiot holding a microphone, it will be me, unless it's Jono Clemente, in which it'll be a very suave-looking man holding a microphone.
Yes.
But the idiot guy, that'll be me.
Score predictions?
3-1 Calder.
Well, it's going to be 4-1 Calder.
2-1 Calder.
Wow.
Descending? No.
That's not how maths
See, this is why I stick to the English and not the maths.
Do we want to do the score predictions for next week, or are you going to listen to them again and get all, righteous about it?
No. I'll let you guys have a week off. I don't want to embarrass you again.
Well, you know what? I heard that.
What do you mean? I didn't say anything.
It slid past me, but I came back to it. But you know what? We will be back next week after the final. Hopefully on a Tuesday. We looking like we'll be back next week Tuesday.
Yeah, hopefully with a member of the victorious side, whoever that victorious side may be,
if possible. We'll try to do our best on Radio Dub, and as always, Lachie, great having you on as a permanent guest.
Pleasure to be here as a semi-permanent or permanent contributor. I'm enjoying it.
You'll be on a review this week. But no, Oscar, thank you for joining me on the show.
And me on the show. I also, your contribution was noted.
Like you're joining me, guys. And
that's true.
But if you'd like to listen to the Radio Dub, again, you can listen on any platform that has FNR, which show...
Yeah, any of your favourite podcast platforms. That is the best place.
You could even check it on Facebook or YouTube. If
you can actually watch our faces in motion.
It's great content. But we will see you next week on Tuesday, and we'll break down all the weekend's action. I don't know words. Bye-bye.
Pickett, she lays it off. Teresa Polias